let's get started. We've got a good contingency already joining here today. So there's a description inside of the chat for anybody who wants to just read again about what a little background on Mark and myself. But Mark, thanks for joining. I really appreciate it. I know you're busy. Let's start with kind of what happened most recently. So you just had your IPO. Congrats on a successful, public offering.
Thank
Monumental
you.
milestone for you, right? Like huge deal. And I've watched, kind of at an arm's length over the last decade plus as you've been building this business. So congratulations.
Thanks.
What would you say is the most kind of like challenging part in that process for you, and what kind of surprised you as you went through your first IPO?
Yeah, I think the answer to both kind of parts of that question are the same, which is it's far less organized than I think most people think, right? So there's obviously a lot of SEC rules and S1s and lots of lawyers involved and things like that. But the actual like going public ultimately is a very last minute decision, and it's quite almost emotional, like you're really just kind of taking the pulse of investors. We decided our roadshow started, I think it was on a God, what day was it? It was maybe a Wednesday.
Mm,
And like the afternoon of the day before, we were still deciding, is this the right moment to go? So it's it and then you're just out there, and like a week later you're public. And once you're public, yeah, kind of you're on the floor in the New York Stock Exchange. The president of the New York Stock Exchange is there. It just kind of like, okay, it's done. You can see the stock on Yahoo Finance, and you just go home. I did go home with the mallet
yeah,
that I actually have
you,
that at my house.
that's cool.
Yeah, so it's like lots and lots of prep, but
Was that given to you? Did you steal it? What?
no, there's not one. It's not 100-year-old mallet. It like has a company name
I
on
thought
it.
you were gonna I thought you were gonna break that bell the way you were hitting it.
Well, that's why I asked so I was standing next to the president of the New York Stock Exchange, which even that was kind of interesting. I'm like, so when you go to dinner and people say, "What do you do for a living?" and you say, "I'm the president of the New York Stock Exchange," like, what do they say? And she says, "They say nothing. They're just stunned. They're like, this is a 130-year institution," and they're like, just don't know how to respond to that, which I thought was pretty funny. But yeah, and it's just over, and now you're public. But it was
Yeah,
like everything is so last minute and just so in the moment, and schedule changing the day of, and it's not
yeah,
anywhere close as organized as I think most people expect. Like once it's like down to the moment. Like I guess it's
yeah.
game time. It's like you can prep for a football game, but once you're on the
Mm,
field, you just don't know how it's going to go. It's more like that than this
yeah,
neatly organized process.
that's pretty interesting, man.
Yeah.
So kind of speaking of that, right? So this like what is it, 2009, 10? When did Mountain start? Or how
Well,
long
so
has it?
so Mount, so Mountain, the way we think of it is really two separate companies. So it's the first company, which was Stillhouse, and that was in the retargeting space, and that grew pretty well. It grew to like 80 million, I think,
Yeah,
in revenue, and then we kind of transitioned. We were about to do an exit on that company. We wound up doing a secondary, and then
mm,
instead of like organizing a new company, we use those assets in order to essentially go after the connected TV space and create this, what we call performance TV. And so we
yeah,
consider that the start of a new company in 2018. And that
got it.
company went zero to the same level of revenue, like 80 million, like 30 months. And
Yeah,
and then
it's intense. Yeah,
has grown since then. So
yeah.
so we see it as like two different. They like Trade Desk. Jeff Green had done a previous company, he sold to Microsoft,
At
and then
ECN. Yeah,
yeah, and then started another company. What we did is we leveraged the cash flow of the first company to essentially do Mountain. Yeah.
got it. So, yeah, so speaking of that rapid growth, right? Like that those 30 months and what you did, there's acquisitions, the team went fully remote by 19, was it
Yeah,
2019 or so?
no, COVID. So we went
20?
fully remote for COVID, but we decided within like I think by July we already decided we're never going back to offices. Like
Yeah,
and which kind of released everyone that you could live wherever you want. You don't have to worry about like you have to be back in the office, and that's a whole that's gone pretty well. And
yeah.
but yeah, it was
But that
2020 we
that
went fully remote.
that's part of the question I have for you is that how did you maintain, because Mountain, when it had an office, had an amazing culture, and you
Yeah.
continued that obviously, because I can see that everyone still is having a really good time there and the culture is strong. How did you maintain that through that type of momentum you were having and the distributed team everywhere?
Yeah, well, the culture, I think it's really simple. The culture is built around trust. And so ironically, when you go fully remote, it requires even more trust in some ways. And
True.
it's not built around kind of like the food in the office and ping pong tables. Those things are fun, but fundamentally, I think there have been many surveys that people would sacrifice income, and they're not having to amount, but they would in order to work somewhere where they felt more trusted, they felt more respected, more listened to. I mean, it's true for any relationship, right? It could be a work relationship like this, or it could be a personal relationship. And so we're really clear on what ultimately makes everyone want to be part of the company and be part of the culture. And there are more things that correlate to, positive relationships you have in your life. And the kind of the perk type things are like then enabled from that. We do three company offsites a year, big ones, 500 people come to those, and they're in a different city each time. We actually have one coming up soon in San Francisco, but we've done them in Napa Valley, Vail, Colorado. We try to go to places most people want to go to, but many have never been. So
Yeah.
like Vail, Napa, Aspen, even San Francisco, a lot of people, especially if you're on the East Coast, it's a good chance you've never been to San Francisco. So that
Yeah.
maintains kind of like the in-person relationships, and then obviously there's a lot we're doing online.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question about the business, specifically around that scaling with new customers. So Q1, right, the numbers out, 1,000 new customers in Q1. Tell me just a little bit about like what's the process, the team structure or the account structure? How are you scaling that many customers in a quarter?
Yeah, so the our Chris Innes kind of built all of this, who's chief operating officer at the company. But
Mhm.
it's all very marketing led. So three-quarters of our revenue comes from inbound leads. That percentage is still going up. So we have a pretty big investment in our own performance marketing, because what we do for our customers is we give them a performance marketing platform for streaming television. So,
Yeah.
and it's direct response marketing on streaming. And we do our own performance marketing, which drives basically marketers to come to Mountain. And then, or what you would traditionally think of as sales reps, we now refer to them as like mountain guides, because they just kind of
Mhm.
like guide
Okay.
you into the company. And they do a
Yeah.
lot less outbound selling essentially. And so it's just a very smooth go-to-market motion, built
Yeah.
around making marketers aware of this as an option in their marketing mix. And then it's really streamlined process to become a Mountain customer. And then there's service team that help answer questions and all that kind of stuff. So this is more like maybe like becoming a Shopify customer than what you traditionally think of
Sure.
B2B, where it's more about like knowing about it, saying, "Oh, that sounds interesting. What's it going to take?" The biggest obstacle we have is which is we solved. We did an acquisition for this, to actually an acquisition, and legally an acquisition, but I refer to more as a partnership, is
Mhm.
creative. So
Yeah.
96% of our customers have never advertised on TV before, so they don't have TV ads when we meet them.
Mhm.
So we acquired QuickFrame in 2021, and then we teamed up with Ryan Reynolds, his agency Maxim Effort, which we legally bought, but I kind of, you don't really buy Max like Ryan Reynolds, like the guys. That's crazy. So we teamed up with Ryan, totally
Yeah.
organic. It just
Yeah.
serendipitous that he and I met, showed him what we're doing, and he said he wanted to be a part of it. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's helped a lot. So Ryan, the same team that's involved in marketing Ryan's movies does the brand marketing for Mountain. And then we have a
Yeah.
big performance marketing team. So that's obviously a big competitive advantage, having that kind of talent, kind of building the Mountain brand.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, it's huge.
Yeah.
And a lot of earned media out of it as well
Yeah,
too.
it's a lot. Yeah.
So looking back a little bit, right, as you went through this journey, this last, two companies over a decade, but even just in the last 7 years with Mountain,
Yeah.
kind of, I'll ask you a question and pick whatever you like out of it. But where do you see they're basically the like mirror image questions, right? So what do you see in this journey that you thought was one of your biggest mistakes that you made while you were scaling, and what you learn from it? And the kind of the flip side is what was something non-obvious, Ryan Reynolds is obvious, that you work with him, you get, as you're going to scale, you're going to grow, you're going to be more valuable. But what are some unconventional things that you might have done that were kind of bold or at the time when you made it and it played out to be a really important part of, the company's critical success?
Yeah. So I think the repeat the first part of the question again. I'm sorry.
The first part was like mistakes you've made. What'd you learn? Like what you're like, oh shit, I would never do that again.
Yeah, so I think the number one and is I wish I had put a COO in place sooner.
Mm,
So Chris Innes, who's incredible, is our chief operating officer, and I mean specifically him, but I think it can apply to any business. I'm just me person. I think I wish I had recognized my strengths and weaknesses, and my strengths are more in kind of the vision, identify product market fit, identifying the opportunity. And my weaknesses are kind of more the day-to-day management that Chris is incredibly good at. And I think I wish, like looking back, like if I was an entrepreneur starting a company right now, the I would try to recognize like how like what's going to be critical to success of company. Am I good at that thing? And if
yeah,
I'm not, like I need to fill that role because it'll just speed everything up.
yeah,
So that for me is like the biggest mistake is like not recognizing that sooner and address, kind of making those kind of choices sooner.
yeah.
And
Let me
in
let's forget the second question if you don't mind, because what I'm
Sure,
gonna want to ask you something else. We're running short on time. I want folks to
sure.
have a chance to ask something, but this is a constant question that comes up to me personally, which is, you said that the real growth for the company is still ahead, right? So
Right.
you've scaled, all this business is scaled. You're on the New York Stock Exchange. You had an IPO. A lot of people are thinking that's it. There you go. There's the exit. But you see this to be significantly scaled, even greater than where it's at today.
Yeah.
What's that scale up based on? What's the plan the next few years? Post IPO, where are you going to get that growth from?
Yeah, so I think one thing is for most successful publicly traded companies, the vast majority of the value is created after the company goes public. So they're the obvious examples, Google, Meta, Meta went public, I think, at like $100 billion valuation, but the company still created 90% of its value at, basically eventually breaking $1 trillion valuation after its
Yeah,
IPO.
yeah,
Trade Desk, AppLovin, Yeah, I think
Yeah,
Trade Desk went public at like $800-900 million valuation, worth like 35-40 billion right now, and that it's not even at its peak. So that's the message I give to the team is like, if you're done, like you're allowed to like, get off this train, but the vast majority of the journey in terms of wealth creation, value creation is like coming now. Like we're just literally at the starting point for that. And so
yeah,
that's the thing. And then in terms of how to do that, you can't stop innovating. You can't like I'm very aware that we have now a lot of investors who I don't get to meet, like individual investors who I don't necessarily. It's fun when I do meet them, actually. When I meet someone, I'm like, oh, I own Mountain Stock. And I feel real responsibility to them, but that responsibility is also to keep doing what we've been doing and amplify it and innovate, especially in this industry. If you're not innovating, you're essentially you've started the process of losing in ad tech.
yeah.
And I think honestly in any industry these days. So it's about, just continuing to invest, continuing to have vision, expand that vision, and a real realization that, look, we basically, at our valuation right now, that's less than 5% of the potential value of this
Yeah.
company. If and it should accelerate, actually, because it's, you're growing and it's multiplying off bigger and bigger numbers, so it
Yeah.
accelerates over time. So
And
that's that way I think of it.
and you're not international yet either. You're just in the
That's
US.
absolutely true. We've had a lot of conversations about international, but we haven't actually
So,
um, uh, made a single penny outside the US yet. So there's all that also. I agree with that.
huge opportunity.
Yeah.
Let me see if we have any questions. We've gone over a little bit, which is fine, but see if there's any questions from anybody here. Um, and no, I don't see anything.
We
Attendees, if you
answered
have.
everything. You asked good questions. That's why.
Well, listen, I mean, I don't mind just going for a minute more, but tell me something, because I'm always curious about this. Like anything unconventional that you did, what I was asking you earlier, anything that you did that you were like, that was a bold move, it wasn't really accepted that well within the organization potentially, or you were like battling with it and it wasn't a big deal, but it turned out to be a big deal and it helped you succeed.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's mainly decisive moves on the how we place people in the organization. Like when we started in CTV, we made a big shift in the sales organization, and they were not happy about it. Because people are very comfortable in what they're doing, and we're like, okay, now we want to focus you on X,
Yeah,
and we had to retrain a lot of people and do a lot of things. And I think maybe to broaden it is just making, once you decide to do something that you think is strategically important, it's just doing it decisively and the without hesitation, because a lot of people I think are afraid, that some people don't like change and they won't respond well to it. But
yeah,
if you take longer, it's not like they're gonna like it more. They're just
yeah.
like so it's just as a matter of fact, they might like it less because now it's taking longer, right?
It's a slog,
And so,
yeah. I mean,
yeah,
at least
yeah.
you can figure out pretty quickly if someone is not part of their DNA and they want to do something different potentially, you
Right.
know? Yeah,
Exactly. So we always view all of that as like these are relationships, and the work relationships, but they're still they're interpersonal relationships. And the at any time, like anyone can choose not to be in that relationship anymore and say, this is not for me.
right.
And I always tell the team, like, if that's the case, luckily our turnover is pretty low. The voluntary turnover is pretty low. But I always tell the team, like, just raise your hand. Like, I'll introduce you to any of our investors if you're just not feeling this
Yeah,
anymore, what you're doing here. And fortunately, most people don't do that. But I mean that. Like, you don't have to like tiptoe around because you're unhappy about something. Like, speak
yeah,
up and
yeah.
let's see if we can address it.
Hey, here's some questions for us. This one is really kind of was key and critical to your success. I remember when you made this bet on CTV. Why did you
Yeah.
decide to get rid of the display and retargeting business and just move into CTV as your media?
Yeah, I mean, it was mainly because we saw the opportunity as just really huge. We were first to market by a long shot, and we wanted to focus all of our energy and money, resources into
Mhm.
the opportunity rather than splitting our focus. So it was just a matter of the opportunity dictated that this wasn't like an incremental addition, that this was very rapidly becoming the business. So we decided to retire the older part of our business, and that I think proved to be a really good thing to do.
Yeah, you think it. I mean,
Yeah,
it's quite surprising. You walked away from a big business and a lot of money that was kind of like I would just say a little easier, it
right.
was easy.
Yeah, yeah.
So but no, that's great. Another question for you is just to get a better understanding of how marketing leads convert to sales. Are you doing industry specific or is it due to targeting? Like what how are you taking these leads? How are they converting into actual
Yeah, they're
campaign?
pretty broad. We have definitely industry specific selling happening, meaning marketing and sales. But for the most part, it's pretty broad. Our customers are predominantly direct to consumer brands, e-commerce brands. There's an increasing amount of local businesses also with brick and mortar businesses. Because it's so broad, our target customer is kind of the long tail e-commerce. So it's very similar like Meta, Google, and we keep and because there's so many potential customers, we keep it pretty all of our marketing pretty broad.
Got it. Cool. Mark, thanks, man. I appreciate the time.
Thanks.
Been good
Appreciate
chatting
it.
with. Yeah, thanks everyone for attending. Talk to you soon.